Thanks so much, Mary-Aline. That's a very important conversation we all need to have again and again. Break that cycle around ageism where people are stereotyping the idea of older women and questioning whether or not their experience today is worth it. I say it's worth every bit of it. With age comes more experience, more spirit, more energy, and so much more perspective on the world that we are in today. Thanks very much for having that critical conversation. Onwards on Women for Health, unlocking the potential of women and girls around the world. That's the spotlight. At a time when we have all emerged somewhat out of this pandemic, there is a big question mark on how the entire journey and effort towards gender equality is going to shift, because the pandemic has left behind many, many issues, one of which is widening that inequality gap. How can we build more resilience for women around the world? Because they are indeed a critical part of that recovery process that the world would undergo. How do we help women come back with confidence into the economy, into an ability to come back and see how their communities can benefit from them and help make a comeback from the point of view that the pandemic has left everyone questioning what is the future of jobs, what is the future of our efforts in terms of people getting together and fulfilling important and impact-driven causes. I'll now pass the mic to Michelle Morse, who's going to have a fantastic lineup to really spotlight how women are really the true force in this comeback story.
Thank you so much, Shelley, for the warm and elaborative introduction about what we're going to talk about. In fact, we are going to talk about some of the crises that are facing girls and women all over the world and how they're at the front line of those solutions. So thank you for that. We're going to talk about how women and girls are key to an inclusive recovery. And for that discussion, we have two outstanding leaders that I know you're going to be keen to hear from. So first, Valerie Jarrett. She is the CEO of the Barack Obama Foundation. She was also a senior advisor to the Barack Obama administration from 2009 to 2017. That makes her the longest serving senior advisor to any U.S. president. She is now a senior fellow, a senior distinguished fellow at the University of Chicago Law School. She is an author and she is an advisor. Hi, Valerie. Welcome.
Hello, Michelle. How are you doing? It's so good to be with you at the Women's Forum. I want to thank everyone for bringing us together and for all the work, Michelle, that you do at the UN Foundation. And I am so delighted to be here with Monica, who is a superstar and really the example of what the Barack Obama Foundation is all about. She was a part of our cohort in our 2018 Africa group of leaders, and she's a partner, as are you, with our Girls Opportunity Alliance now. So I could not be more delighted to be here.
Oh, thank you, Valerie. That's fantastic. And indeed, you're right. We have a star in our midst. Monica Nyiraguhabwa is the co-founder and executive director of Girl Up in Uganda. And as Valerie mentioned, she has been involved in the Girls Opportunity Alliance Network. She has been part of the Obama Foundation Leaders Africa initiative. And so we are delighted to have you here for this discussion. Hi, Monica.
Hi, so excited to be in this space to have this very important conversation.
Welcome, welcome. Well, we are well poised for an enlivening conversation that meets the moment. Valerie, I'm going to come back to you for our first question. You've worn a lot of hats. You are a longstanding and admired advocate for women and girls, and you've done that both as chair of the Council on Women and Girls in the Obama administration, also co-chairing the United States of Women, and now, of course, in your current role as CEO of the Obama Foundation. I bet we all want to know, where does that passion come from? How did you become this dedicated advocate that we know today?
Well, I think it comes from my own life experiences, as probably is the case for a lot of advocates out there. My mom, who's 93 now, always worked, and I watched her do what I call the mighty juggle, trying to make sure she took care of myself and my dad, as well as her professional commitments. And then I remember as a young, single, working mom who felt always as though I was hanging on by my fingertips. But guess what? I had a great job. I had health insurance. I had incredible support with parents who lived nearby. I had a caregiver who started with me when my daughter was 3 months old, and we packed my daughter off to college together. I had an enormous safety net of friends and support. And so I used to say to myself, well, if I'm holding on by my fingertips, what must it be like for women who have none of that safety net and who are struggling to get an education, to make ends meet, and they're one paycheck away from a disaster. They're worried about whether they're leaving their children in a place that's safe. And so 35 years ago, I found myself saying, I'm going to devote a good part of my life to fighting to try to level the playing field. I often say that, talent is ubiquitous. Opportunity is not. And so if we're in a position, either from an advocate or an expert or a public policy maker, to level that playing field, that's what we should be doing. And I have enjoyed being on all sides of that equation and forming partnerships, as I mentioned, with the two of you and so many more who share this passion to make sure that every young girl has that opportunity to achieve her dreams, and we remove the barriers that are getting in the way.
Valerie, I love the way you phrase that. Talent is ubiquitous and the struggle is mighty. We're going to talk about both of those things. In fact, also, I'd like to hang out with your cool mom. Monica, how about for you? Where did this passion for gender equality and for girls and women, where did it come from?
So just like Valerie said, for me, it comes from, my personal experiences. And like Valerie said that, I think she had the safety net. Coming from Africa and from a community like mine, I didn't have the safety net. And as I was growing up, I could tell that as a girl, I wasn't valued as much as my brother. And therefore, I grew up questioning. But because in my culture, you're not allowed to question elders, so that silence was within me. But as I kept in school, I kept asking myself, why is it like that for all girls in my community? And for me, then I said, for me to be able to change this narrative, I needed to stay in school, to be able to get more information, to get the knowledge, but also to do something about it, because I knew that it had to stop. And someone like me had to start this movement. So you find that it was my personal experiences of pain, of neglect, of discrimination from my own parents that really left me very uncomfortable. And when I grew up, had an education, understood how patriarchy works, I said enough is enough. It's time for one of us to start this movement. And then 9 years ago, I started this movement as a very young girl out of university. But again, what keeps me so fierce in this space is the community of support. Like you said, I'm an Obama Africa Leader Fellow, and I'm part of the Girls Opportunity Alliance. I know starting initiatives may be simple, but staying on track, staying fueled, is another challenge. But to appreciate that, why am I still dedicated to this work? It's because of this community of support, where I've been supported with resources, supported with learning opportunities, supported with networking opportunities that refuels my energy, because I can't do it alone. It's lonely at the top, So I really want to appreciate being part of this global community that keeps me going, keeps mentoring me, and I'm not about to get, out of the way. I'm still in this space, ensuring that girls' education is a priority.
Well, I'll speak for that big global community that we're part of. Yeah, we're going to get out of your way and let you lead. And also, I'm so pleased that you said enough is enough, and then you decided to do something about that. So speaking of this big network of partners, Valerie, I think that leads us to the work of the Obama Foundation, because you are in fact building a network of partners all over the world, and you're closing that gap between talent and opportunity and potential. Tell us more about that.
Well, sure. So our mission at the Obama Foundation is to inspire, convene, empower, connect the next generation of leaders, give them the tools that they need to go out and be a mighty force for change in their own communities. We don't tell them what issue they should care about, but we give them the tools and evidence-based strategies to put into place to move that needle, and we connect them with one another. And so far we have programs, as I mentioned, in Africa that Monica participated in Asia, in Europe, and half of the people who've been participated in our leadership program so far are women, of which I'm very proud. And the work that they're doing on the ground is transforming the world. And we want to unleash that potential that we know that they have. We also know, and I should mention that it's everything from economic development empowerment in Africa to closing the gender gap in technology in Asia, to encouraging women to go into politics in Europe, and connecting, as I said, these experts around the world so that they not only learn from us, but they learn importantly from one another. We also know, and I know obviously this is important to both of you, that there are over 130 million girls around the world who are right now not in school, who are not getting the kind of education that they need, and who have incredible barriers depending upon where they are, which is why we're focusing, for example, on relief in Afghanistan. And we all know the challenges that girls in Afghanistan are having, or in Haiti after the tragedy that they have. They are on the ground with organizations that are meeting people where they are, that have the expertise, but just need additional resources. So we help them raise money to support these important efforts on the ground. And what we really are excited about is unleashing the potential that we know that these girls have. And all they need is support. And if we can be a clearinghouse to say, these are the organizations that are doing extraordinary work. They're the ones that are following evidence-based strategies, and match up those resources with the need through partnerships as the ones that we have with both of you, then the sky is the limit of what we can do. And we're also working here domestically with our Girls Opportunity Alliance. What can we do across the United States? Yes, there are challenges around the world, but we also know that there are far too many girls in our own country who are not getting the kind of support and resources that they need to stay in school. So what are the barriers that need to be removed? How do we unleash the full potential? How do we connect our cohorts of young leaders with organizations that they can be a part of? And how do we take the impact that we're having to scale? And that's the challenge. Oftentimes we meet these incredible young superstars and they're only able to help a handful of people. But what if we could grow those programs exponentially? What if we could harness the resources that we know are available? And right now, I mean, I have to say, in the midst of this incredible, devastating pandemic, many of the inequities that we have all known for far too long existed for women and girls have not only been laid bare by the pandemic, but they've been exacerbated by the pandemic. In this country, it was women who were the first ones to lose their jobs. Women who disproportionately bore the responsibility when children were home from school for making sure that they're on these Zooms, and you try to have a third grader paying attention while you're trying to do your own job if you haven't lost your job. And as I said, women were the first moved out of the workforce, and so many women are not going back into the workforce. And so what do? Is we try to grow this economy here in the United States and around the world to make sure that those inequities that we've now all seen clearly, from education to healthcare to job opportunities, are closed, and that we are focusing on closing them permanently going forward. And that includes everything from equal pay for women, paid leave, paid sick days, workplace flexibility, which we've now seen we can all do. And so let's be more flexible, affordable childcare, a whole host of issues that are barriers to women in the workplace who still disproportionately bear so much of the responsibility for being both breadwinners and caregivers.
Valerie, I have a feeling that a lot of people in our audience are nodding as you're talking about that near universal experience during this crisis. But I also appreciate your words about the power and solidarity among girls in the United States, girls country to country, region to region, and across all of these issues. So Monica, I want to go to you about how that feels, how that is expressed in the ground for you in Uganda. Tell us about your day-to-day work, and tell us about Girl Up, a program that is so dear to my heart. What a treat to get to talk to someone who's added such power and glory to that program. Tell us about your day-to-day work.
So my day-to-day work involves working with my communities, working with my teams, building our strategy, because Gallup started as a community-driven organization. It started from an idea, from my own experiences, but it's now grown into an institution that's bigger than myself. So working with a team of over 25 staff and over 300 community support members has been one of our biggest achievements in these years, because as Gallup Initiative Uganda, we believe that change has to be community driven, and community members should be given the tools that they require to lead this change. So as part of our programming, the adolescent girls are at the core of our work. We believe that for change to happen, it has to start with personal empowerment, because girls coming from our communities are dealing with so much. So it's very important that our program addresses the personal needs before they can even appreciate the other community needs. So our program is quite deep. It's deep because we know that we are dealing with very complex issues that take time. So those are our programs. And of course, in terms of what we do, we focus mainly on girls' education, on girls' leadership, and on skills development for girls and young women. But we also know that as we address the complex issues of girls, communities should be part of this conversation. So we work closely with all community allies, the local leaders, the cultural leaders, the religious leaders, because we know that they are gatekeepers of power. They are the gatekeepers of patriarchy. So how do we actually attract them to come into the conversation if we are to address the issues that girls and young women face? So those are our programs. And of course, we've been so privileged and blessed that through the Girls Opportunity Alliance, we do have what we call the Girls Opportunity Alliance has supported our Big Sisters mentorship program, because we know that beyond equipping girls with personal skills, it's important to create space where girls come together to inspire each other, to ignite their energy, to speak about their challenges openly. And so with the support, we've been able to carry out this program for the last 2 years. And we are so appreciative, given the lockdowns and COVID. Girls have not been in school for 2 years, Girls have been locked up in their homes, and some parents are actually molesting their girls. This program helps girls come out of these communities, gives them inspiration, takes them away from, these communities that sometimes are not very safe, to a space where they can be girls. They can ignite that energy. They can refuel that energy. As they move back to their communities, they feel there is hope for themselves and for their lives. Thank you.
Well, there's just such power in mentorship and sisterhood and connectivity. And I appreciate that you saw a need, and then Girl Up Uganda came in to fulfill that need. And also that you have adapted during this crisis what those girls need, the kind of sistership and solidarity they need. That's wonderful to hear. Valerie, you speaking of the crisis, which Monica just referenced, you elaborated with such power, what this crisis is like for girls and women all over the world and the lasting effects of that. I wonder if you might also elaborate a little bit on kind of like the long-term need for women's leadership, the long-term need for gender equality. What does it mean for all the issues that we care about? Why is it worth striving for?
What a good question. Well, you need only listen to Monica to appreciate what happens when we unleash potential. There it is. That's Exhibit A right there. But look, the fact of the matter is, President Obama had an expression that he used in a State of the Union several years ago. He said, when women succeed, America succeeds. And I think that's true for the world. We realize the incredible potential that women have, half the population. And why would we leave half that population on the sideline when they could be adding so much to the vibrancy of our world, solving the problems that we have around the world? And so I think it begins with, in a very intentional and transformative space, insisting that women have a seat at the table. And I mean every table. Women should be represented in the boardroom. They should be represented in government at all levels of government. They should be leading civil society, as you are doing, Michelle. They should be leading the business, not-for-profit, and government enterprises around the world. And if we put women in a position where they're at the table and we listen to their voices and we're willing to have an open mind and say, we have to be transformative. We have to do things differently. If we keep going the way we're going, we're not going to move that curve exponentially higher as it should be. And so this requires intentionality. And it also, I think, requires, and here's the good news, an understanding that diversity is a strength. Mm-hmm. And I think there is increasing research that shows in the private sector, companies and leaders who get this and who surround themselves with leadership team and a workforce that reflects the rich diversity of the marketplace, which is global right now, that we make better decisions. And so this is not a nice to do. This is, yes, it is the right thing to do, but that's not, I think, where the paradigm is shifting. I think there's a far greater appreciation that if we unleash this potential, we have the potential to move the needle exponentially. And so it begins with women, putting them at the table. If there's an old expression that Shirley Chisholm used to use here, which is if there isn't a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. And I think that those of us who have seats at the table cannot be satisfied with being the only one. There is safety in numbers. Just the psychology. I mean, Monica should not have to be working in isolation. She will reach her fullest potential if she has a cohort of Monicas all over the world who are not just rooting for her, but sharing their best practices with her as well. That's how we level the playing field. And so I do think that we are at a unique moment as we emerge, hopefully, from this pandemic to take a hard look at the disparities that I talked about a few minutes ago, and then be very intentional about how we close those gaps and to support organizations on the ground who have the expertise. Monica has a much better idea of what to do in her community than I could possibly know, but I know the results that she's created. And so I want to ensure that we are raising resources to support organizations such as Monica because of her proven track record. And I think what we have to appreciate is that we go to the marketplace for people who can provide the funding that we need to support organizations like that. And we make a very strong case for why it's in their self-interest to do so. So I think part of the psychology I'm looking for is that stop looking this as like philanthropy helping someone else. Recognize that if we are able to get women in school, problems like climate change are more likely to get solved. There's evidence to that effect. And so there are infinite possibilities if we start from a repositioning that diversity and women and girls sitting at the table puts you in a far better position than when they're on the sideline. And I think that psychology is changing before our very eyes, an appreciation for this untapped potential that's out there.
You're absolutely right. Like the data is really clear about this, that we are stronger when we work together and we include everybody and when we prioritize belonging. You're reminding me of that phrase, nothing about us without us. And listening to Monica makes me, we realize quickly, like, we're just so much better when Monica's at the table. So, Monica, Valerie has teed up this next question just perfectly. What do you want the audience to know about how they can support girls? What can they do right now? How do they support communities and like yours around the world? How do we unlock the power of girls? What is your call to action for us today?
My call to action is that as the world grapples with so many challenges, like Valerie said, it's important that we reposition the issues of girls because we know that the outcomes are much greater. Because our girls are the mothers, they're the nurturers, they're the caregivers. Imagine if these girls are educated, then you're sure that the health outcomes will be better. So much as we have so much happening, it's important to acknowledge that girls' issues still need to be at the front line. Because with girls' issues at the front line, we shall be able to address, I think, all the global challenges that we are facing. So that's my call to action. And what I want everyone on this call to appreciate, funders, people in governments, is that it's important to invest in grassroots leaders. Proximity matters. COVID has taught us that you do not need a lot of bureaucracy to address the issues of communities as they happen. So it's important for us to embrace. We are stronger together. It's important that you bring all grassroots leaders onto the conversation, onto the table, and we shall be able to work together and to address these issues that girls and women face globally.
We are stronger together, indeed, indeed. Valerie, I want to go back to you, related to this question. You are fluent in public sector and private sector partnerships. What is your call to action for this group? What do you want them to know and what do you want them to do?
I want them to support Monica and all of the Monicas out there. I mean, part of the secret sauce of the Girls Opportunity Alliance is that our job is to go out and discover the Monicas of the world and then find the funding resources necessary to allow her to have her impact and take it to scale. And so I say to everyone, first of all, there's something each and every one of you can do. Oftentimes it's not a lot of money. A little bit goes a long way. But if you have a lot of money, give a lot of money. And our network is available on our website. You can go to girlsopportunityalliance.org and find out all of the different organizations. As Monica said, they're on the ground, these grassroots organizations that every single day are working miracles. And that's where change happens. And we have to meet people where they are. And so we have to fund organizations that have the credibility, the track record, the reputation, the expertise, and all they need are more resources so that they can take their impact to scale. So my call to action is everyone out there, please do your part and recognize that we're not doing this simply because it's the right thing to do. It will be better for our world if women have that equal playing field. I have no worries about our ability to compete because we've done so on an uneven playing field. Imagine what we could do if we leveled it.
A level playing field. That is what we want, indeed. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Monica. Thank you for sharing with all the listeners today how they can be involved in gender equality, how they can connect Monica's and the experts, the lighthouses of opportunity around the world. We so appreciate it. So let's all work together to close the gap between talent and opportunity. Thank you both so much for everything that you do. And so with that, I'll turn it back to Shelley. Shelley, thank you so much.
Thanks very much. What a powerful discussion. I think I was nodding through this discussion, and I think that's also the biggest takeaway, that we are pretty much in agreement with the fact that we need a sisterhood, we need a powerful network, and the ones that we have, we need to leverage them better and make this a resilient recovery. Some of the very critical subjects that have been discussed are about the impact on women in terms of jobs, in terms of gender-based violence and many other aspects that need to be put back on the front burner for every one of us to really have that discussion. Sitting here in India, really running a very large platform for women every day, that's the one thing I keep thinking about. I get feedback on women just need a stage. They will get up there and stand and ask for what they want. They just need those opportunities out there, and they would be there to, sort of capture that moment for themselves and navigate it. After all, for years and years and decades, they have navigated very complex situations that have been defined by the patriarchal systems that they have faced all through. But it's been wonderful to have all these sessions on women for health. What could be more befitting than wrapping up a discussion with Michelle Obama's very, very critical, simple, quote, which said that communities and countries are only as strong as the health of their women. And that, I think, is really what sums up our day here for Women for Health. Stay with the Women's Forum, because Women for Business is lined up all of tomorrow, and we'll be excited to host you all back on many of the powerful discussions.